Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rewind and Reflect, where we believe in the universal truth that there's no such thing as a coincidence or a mistake. And we're here to tell you a little bit about that in our lives. My name is Deb Miller.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Doyle. Hey, Deb, I just realized
What?
that I played a completely different intro song than we
I
normally
like
do.
it though.
Did you like it? I kind of liked it too. It was a little peppy, but I was like, I thought I hit the right song. And then I'm like, oh, this doesn't sound like it normally sounds. And
It
then I
did
looked down
sound a
and I'm
little
like,
different.
oh, because it's a completely different song, but okay.
It sounded kind of tropical, which makes me
Yeah.
feel like right at home because I'm sitting outside and the air is pretty balmy here. So
Oh,
feeling
nice. It
tropical.
actually is very humid here and warm, but as you can tell by my hair is like out of control frizzy, but
Are you
um
hearing any background noise here of mine? Okay. You would have
no.
heard there's our neighbors are doing some construction, so I just don't want it to be a distraction, but I don't think our house
No.
is doing. Yeah. So what's
How's
going
it going?
on? What's
Not much. I feel like I got my flowers planted. I feel like all refreshed and ready for summer. I'm feeling pretty
good?
good. I have shed some clothes and I feel good. I feel really
Oh,
good. How about you? Is
yeah.
it like beastly hot there?
90s, humid, not spending too much time outside. But yeah, but life is good. No complaints at all. I had something interesting happen yesterday,
Oh,
that I
do tell.
to touch on. Well, a couple things. So I've been meeting with my spiritual advisor, and she's really teaching me how to plug in a little bit more to spirit, to spirit world, to using all the tools and techniques that we are born with, but kind of forget about because our big fat ego often gets in the way, and the way we're kind of brought up or trained to think
Hmm.
is really difficult to shed after a while. So, anyways, we were talking about intuition, and I started reading a little bit about it. And so a couple days ago, my friend and I, we were both dog sitting, and we happened to be dog sitting across the street from each other. So, and she's a realtor. She's been a realtor for like 30 years. And so we're walking the dogs, and this other woman comes at us, and she's walking her dog, but she picks her little dog up and she says, sorry, she thinks she owns the place, so she's not, really friendly or whatever. And I said, "Hey, that's fine." And she then she looked at us. She goes, "Do you guys live here? Live around here?" Or something like that. And I said, no, we're dog sitting for neighbors." And she said, "Oh, I thought I recognized the dogs, but I haven't seen you guys before." Now, I get a lot of that when I'm walking a dog because other people that have dogs often are looking for dog sitters, right? So
Right.
it didn't cross my mind in the little smallest way not to have a conversation with this woman. And so we kept walking, and my friend says to me, "I cannot get over how open and kind you are to people." She goes, "My first thought when that woman said, 'Do you live around here?' was like, that's none of your business." And I said to her, she said, I said, "Well, I don't know. I didn't feel threatened by that woman. I didn't take her question as like, that she was, 'Do you even live here?' Nothing like that.
Yeah.
But my friend Christine has been in situations before in neighborhoods where she's been treated like that when she's shown, like walking around the house, looking at the property or whatever she's doing. She's had people approach her like, what do
Wow.
you live here? And she takes it very offensively. And and I said, "Well, that's so funny how, you think of things one way and I thought of the other." I said, "But I will tell you." She goes, "Well, I always see you do that. Just make conversation with people. It must be the way you were brought up." And I said, "Oh yeah, my mom I don't think I've ever been out in public with her where she hasn't said to a complete stranger, oh, I love that color on you, or what a pretty hat. Oh, those earrings are beautiful. Like she's just always does that. And so
Mm-hmm.
I too have learned to do that. But Christine's very guarded. She's like, I don't open conversations like that. And I said to her, well, I will tell you that, my significant other, Kevin, is 100% convinced that I'm going to be kidnapped one day by the guy in the white van with no windows,
Yeah.
because
Offering you some ice cream or something, right?
right, right. And I said, and she said, so we started talking about intuition and she said, you either have the flight or fight response. When you feel something is not right, and internally you have the flight or fight response.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally have never felt that. What I do when I'm in a situation that's uncomfortable, I freeze. So I don't have the fight or flight, I have the freeze. And so, anyways, I'm working on my intuition and being able to follow my gut a little bit more. Um, and
The
real,
freeze is fear-based, though.
oh,
The
totally.
freeze is 100% fear-based.
Oh, that's right. I'm afraid. So, but I don't run and I don't fight. I'm so afraid that I'll just stand there.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
So as you're starting to tap into, like, I call intuition the sixth
mhm.
sense. But and there and people and in my yoga practice, it's called like true north.
Oh, okay. Follow your true north.
Um, as you start tapping into that sixth sense, your intuition, have you found that freeze response is dwindling a little bit?
Well, I haven't really had to put it to the test, so because I thank God, thank you, Lord, have not been in a situation where I felt fearful. But I do put myself in situations like I'm inner city at the Salvation Army with the homeless people and the people in rehab and the people, I go to the jail. So I do put myself in positions where something could go sideways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I have not had that. I've not had to use that intuition. I think what I'm focusing more on is like picking up on the energy of people.
Okay, so when you go into the Salvation Army, so let me ask you something. Typically, when you go into the Salvation Army, is it the same people or is it a group? It's not always the same people because there's a transient nature to the
Right.
Salvation Army.
Yeah, it's a 4-month program, but a lot of people come into the program, they leave, they come back, so but many times I'm working with people who, that are there for all the months. And it's very difficult because they're still in their disease. And even if they're
Mm-hmm.
not using drugs or alcohol, their mind is still the diseased mind. So all they know is how to, manipulate and lie to get what they want. And so I tend to be like, believe every word that they say. And that's not okay
Mm-hmm.
because I've many, 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 many countless times been in a position where I'm lied to, I'm manipulated. And it's not good for my spirit. It hurts.
So
And
in those times, do you feel like you ignored a signal that your intuition was trying to tell you, trying to send you about either the group, the day, the night, a specific person? So do you feel like when you ignored that, you were lied to and manipulated and didn't notice it because you didn't sort of tap into that physical feeling of something's just not right here and I don't know why,
right. Oh,
but I'm
totally.
going to keep
I've
it.
been the red flags are always there. I can now I'm starting to work on when I just don't trust something, to really don't trust it, not talk myself out of not trusting it, because
Yes.
I'm going
Huge.
against, yeah, I'm going against that's an intuition. Like, I know this person is lying right to my face, but instead of making her uncomfortable and having to deal with something uncomfortable, I'm just going to believe her. I can't do that. I have to
Right.
now. And it's the same with anybody in life, relationships. If your child, is lying to you and you're like, I just don't want to deal with this. You just kind of,
Hmm.
but you have to, because that person needs to know that, you're tapped into them,
Right.
and you're listening enough to know that
Right.
what you're saying is not the truth, or you're being manipulated.
Yeah, and I think, here's the other thing, or going taking it a step further. It's not like you have to tell that person right there, like, listen, I don't believe you, but you can be in a conversation, not, holding true to your intuition, holding true to your true north, and allowing that person to just speak or be without you having to jump in both feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that was one of the hard things for me you know, to sort of understand is I can hold true to who I am. I can listen to my gut, but it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. Like, I don't have to be rude. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have to be like, well, you know what? Fuck off, because I don't believe you. My gut is telling me such. I know that you're a bullshitter, and I'm going to call you. Like, it's not my responsibility to call the person out on it, but
Hmm.
it is my responsibility to hold true to who I am and not allow myself to be sucked in by that person's bad energy, manipulation, disrespect, whatever you want to call it.
Well, but here's my question to you, though. When you're invested in somebody, whether it's your child, your spouse, or somebody that you have committed to mentoring, I feel like I do need to call them out on it so they know the boundary that I'm setting. And
Yeah, I think yes, yes, yes. My example was more like just coming across somebody, like, knowing that, they're just bullshitting me, and, or like just being in the presence of somebody that you have that feeling like, there's something
yes,
off
yeah,
with this
yeah, yeah.
person, or there's something off, even if it's just a situation. Like, you don't necessarily have to um
Engage.
engage, exactly, but you can still sort of be there physically present without having to engage.
Right, right. Yeah. So
So
it's
yeah, I
people.
mean, when you're invested in somebody, it is a little different, I think. But I'm going to ask you this. If you had, so you're invested in what you're doing as a quote unquote like spokesperson, or
That's
for
a sponsee. Yeah.
sponsee, excuse me, for this group of people, you have made the commitment to go and do this at this place without, and we've talked about this, right? Without hanging your hat on others people's success, or
Mhm.
retaining the
Mhm.
information, or even engaging with
Yeah.
you, right? So um I don't know. I mean, I think your child, or your significant other is different than, calling somebody out on their bullshit, who decides that they don't want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult in either situation because they're lying for a reason. They're protecting something.
Hmm.
They feel like they've made a wrong decision and they don't want to disappoint or get in trouble or whatever that is. So, and we're kind of getting off topic here a little bit because I guess if I'm speaking to somebody and I know that they're feeding me a bunch of bullshit, like, I can choose not to be have that person in my close circle, right? And just
Correct.
understand, like, okay, and that happens,
But
that happens.
yeah.
Mm. And then there's the people who I've invested in and I've committed to helping and seeing them through let's just say the 12 steps. And they're not being truthful with me. And I know it because instinctually you could start to be able to tell.
Right.
So I've got to follow my intuition in a way that I acknowledge that internally that what they're saying isn't the truth, but it's coming from a place where they're not trusting me enough to be honest or vulnerable or whatever it is. So, but when it comes to somebody that I'm close to, you know, it's so hard because, all right, like when your kids are growing up and they're going through those stages where they're experimenting or they're sneaking out of the house or they're doing things that that you would not approve of, but they're doing it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that they're lying right to your face. And it's embarrassing
Right.
because that they're lying to your face and you're like, just stop embarrassing yourself and me and tell me the truth. But to me, that kind of thing needs to be addressed and really put in really set boundaries because you're setting them up for being able to just step all over you and get away with whatever. And it's the same in a marriage or a relationship. It's like when you have a gut feeling, when I do anyways, I have to discuss it and I have to bring it to the surface or else
Mm-hmm.
it just eats away at me.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm trying to do is determine what's real and coming
So I
out.
think we're talking a little bit of more of like a bullshit meter.
Yeah.
Because to me, like your intuition, your true north, what you stand for as a human being, right,
Yeah.
has brought you to the work that you're doing,
Yeah.
right? But we're talking about a bullshit meter. Like we as humans also have a bullshit meter that, yes, kind of goes with our intuition in the sense that, so here's the thing. You're not going to stop doing the work that you're doing that is intrinsic to who you are, that has this is what you are grounded in, this is what you believe in as a human being, this is what you take a stand for,
Mhm.
correct? But it doesn't mean that when you come across somebody where your bullshit meter is like just going flying
Yeah.
flying to the right,
Yeah.
that it's going to knock you off course.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with our kids is we know what instinctually in our gut what we need to instill in them,
Right.
right? And so we hold true to that.
Mm-hmm.
When they start kind of testing, right, those limits and again your bullshit meter is like flying to the right,
Yes.
like, oh boy, like they think they have reinvented the wheel. Let me tell you something, they have not, because I've been there, done that, all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's our job as parents to say, listen, number one, to yourself, I know that I have instilled the difference between right and wrong in this person. I hold true to that. What I have taught them is intrinsically who we are as a family, and
Mm-hmm.
you got to have faith that has landed. What they are doing is they're testing their intuition. They're
Mm-hmm.
testing their gut. They're saying, okay, like I'm going to go here, and they're sort of looking to us to say, don't do that, or you're going to be grounded, or anything like that. You know, yes, if it puts them in harm's way, like I get that, but more it's, to me, it's like a teaching moment. To me, it's like, okay, so how does this make you feel by doing this? You know, are you getting any internal signs saying this might not be, and it's sort of like this give and take, but I think it's different when you're a parent because you are really raising these children to go out into the world, right?
Mhm.
And you just want to instill in them a really solid, stable compass. And so what you're doing with your work, what I feel like I do with my yoga teaching is be an example of that, that you have found your stable ground. You have
Mhm.
found your foundation and you move from there.
Yeah. You know, I also tell them, that just popped into my mind while you were saying that, is with the people that I work with anyways, with sponsor wise, I will say to them, the minute I stop confronting you on your bullshit is the minute that I've stopped caring about you.
Right,
And that happened
right.
because if the trust can't be had, it's over for me, you know? And there's so many people that really, really want to stay in recovery, and they really need somebody to guide them. And then there's other people who just need to check the box so they can get out of the rehab. And so, yeah, so that's the other thing
Yeah.
about this. Like, even if you instinctually know something, but you just don't care enough to even confront it, c'est la vie. That's
Right.
Yeah, that's really when I know it's over. It's like, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but here, you couldn't be doing the work that you're doing if your foundation wasn't stable.
Right, of course. Oh my gosh, this I would be if I wasn't on stable.
You'd be knocked off course constantly.
I would have lost my mind years ago.
Same thing. Same thing. And so my yoga teacher, the one of the, aligning principles of the kind of practice that I do is um build every pose on a stable foundation.
Mm,
And basically what it is you're standing in your power by
mm,
doing that.
mhm,
And from there, you have freedom to
mhm.
do all these other things.
Yeah,
If you don't have, it's, he said, if you don't, it's like building a house on sand.
sure.
And it's the same thing. And it's like, again, when you become a parent, hopefully, you know, you have a general idea of how. I didn't know anything. And let me tell you something. I never babysat, never took care of a kid, nothing. But this, like, as soon as my kids were born, it was sort of like this thing happened where um I knew, I wanted them to feel stable.
And
And then I
safe.
wanted to put them out into the world with a stable foundation. And a lot of people get that from their church. I did not. I
Mm,
just, I felt it was just really important to me to know that, I'm providing this a stable, moral, ethical compass for them. Not to say that they're not going to make mistakes, and not to say that they did things that I was like, are you fucking kidding me right now? But as long as it wasn't putting them in a physical, harmful
sure.
path,
Hmm.
you have to have faith that your foundation is stable enough not to have anybody else knock you off. And if you do get knocked off, then you do the work to go back to finding your true north. Your true north is like your moral compass. Like, how
Yeah,
am I going to walk out into the world and not be knocked over by the world?
yeah. By life on life's terms, man.
Yeah,
Because
like you're not trying to save you're not trying to save all of mankind, right? But you are trying to. Exactly. You can't meet life on life's terms if you are not stable in who in the kind of life that you want to live,
yeah. Well,
right?
I also, and I've mentioned this before. So my I mean, I grew up with a very normal family, you know, and I always felt like I could, no matter where I was, I could come home to them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, both literally and figuratively.
Mm-hmm.
And then my life turned into a complete shit show. And I suddenly was raising this child, and I was like, he doesn't have any of the things that I had. Most people will be like, I want my child to have everything I didn't. And I'm like, I want my child to have everything I did, and I can't give it
Yes.
to him.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
so funny that you say that. Keep going because I feel the same way.
yeah, so I'm like, here I am, divorced, an addict, poor, the whole 9 yards. And and so then when I started into recovery, and those 12 steps and me working on myself really is what gave me my foundation. And it gave me enough foundation that I knew that it didn't matter if my life and Hunter's life didn't look like the perfect family with the father figure and the husband and the this and the that and the siblings. All that mattered was that I was strong enough and stable enough to have for him to always know where I am,
Yes.
figuratively and
Yeah.
literally, and be strong enough in my roots that nothing can knock me down when the
Mm-hmm.
storms of life come at me. And sure, a leaf will fall or a twig will break, but I am solid in the ground. So he
Amen.
can, that's all a
Yeah.
child needs,
Yeah.
and so
It's interesting because my husband and I grew up financially very different, right? I mean, I grew up very similarly to you, which, is great, right? I mean, let's call a spade a spade. We were spoiled.
mhm,
Spoiled. Spoiled.
we had
16
everything.
car, credit
Yeah.
cards, the whole 9 yards. Like whatever we wanted to do, we did, right? My husband grew up with it, what he calls a come over father. His father came to this country when he was like in his late teens, maybe 20-ish. Five boys,
Mm,
you know, could not could not keep food on the table fast
right.
enough, right? And we always compare. Now we compare stories kind of like with a chortle and a chuckle, like all his vegetables came out of a can, my vegetables came from, the organic farm down the
Right.
street, right? And like all this other stuff. But I say to him constantly, I said, you and your five brothers, who by the way, they talk every day and are as thick as thieves, had a foundation instilled in them that is so rock solid.
Mm.
It's mind blowing to me.
Family,
Mind
family,
blowing to me.
family. Yeah.
And, listen, I don't feel that. Yes, do I feel like if I needed help and I had to ask for help, sure, I wouldn't be alone, but there's not that like that bond that, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
that's what I wanted for my family is that, have I financially surpassed my parents? Fuck no, I have not. I have not. But I do feel like I have surpassed them in my kids
Yeah.
see each other without me there.
Yeah.
They know that they have a soft place to land, you know, whenever they need to,
Mhm.
without judgment.
Mhm.
However, I will be there to help them extract the lesson out of it,
Mhm. Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed. Like,
Um,
yeah, I hear you. We, I'm not talking to my brothers every day at all. I'm
no,
very much, we'll check
alone.
in with
Yeah.
each other, but yeah, we're not talking to my brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's it's interesting, but so what I have learned, because for the longest time I didn't understand that. I didn't understand, like, what do I stand for? What do I want the world to know that makes me get up in the morning, or any of that, what am I a stand for? And my yoga practices kind of helped me with that. And what I have noticed over the years is I don't drive by the physical cues I get when something does not ally with that.
Yeah.
Where I used to be like, oh, but this is what I want, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And my body is telling me this is not good for you,
Right.
right? And so, my yoga practices taught me that. And what's very interesting is my yoga teacher constantly says this, and it makes so much sense. Your body will never lie to you.
Mm.
Your head constantly lies to you.
Yes.
And so when you can tune into those intuitional cues, your foundation gets stronger.
Yeah.
Your footing gets more stable. And then you stop listening to all the things that are floating around in your head that are lying to you.
The ego.
The
Yeah,
ego, and then you don't really get, and listen, we're going to get knocked off course for the rest of our lives,
of
but
course.
it may not be such a sharp left or right. It may just be sort of a, like, going around a rotary.
Yes. But much not
Yeah,
so sharp,
exactly.
not the edges aren't so
Exactly.
sharp. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I love this. I hope our audience got something out of it. Listen
Me
to
too.
intuition.
Me too. Until next time, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, and don't forget to subscribe everybody to YouTube so that you'll know
Yes. So
immediately.
if you're one of our subscribed viewers, you will get, you'll get a message when we upload. We upload every Thursday morning. Or you can listen to us on Spotify or Amazon Music. Share the show if you enjoy it, or if you find that you have listened to a message that would resonate with you or somebody in your life. And do not hesitate to email us at rewindandreflectwithus@gmail.com.
Mhm. Namaste, everybody. Love you.
Bye. Love you.
Bye.